Cold steel kisses her temple. The barrel trembles slightly. Whoever's holding it isn't as calm as he pretends to be. Elena Graves feels the pressure against her skin, calculates the angle, estimates the trigger. Pull weight at roughly 5.5 pounds. Standard Glock 19, 9mm, 15 rounds in the magazine, if fully loaded, one in the chamber. If he's competent enough to keep his weapon hot. He's competent. 7 hostile operators fill the operations room like smoke fills a burning building. Actual smoke hangs in the air, like funeral shroud, thick with cordite and burning insulation, and the particular chemical smell that comes from detonated explosives. The overhead lights flicker, casting shadows that dance across tactical gear and hard faces that have seen too much violence and caused even more. Outside, somewhere in the California darkness, beyond these concrete walls, Naval Base Coronado burns. Gunfire echoes across the tarmac in sporadic bursts, screams, explosions. The sound of a secure military facility being systematically torn apart by professionals who know exactly what they're doing and have done it. Elena stands in the center of the room, hands zip-tied behind her back with the kind of plastic restraints that cut into skin if you struggle. Blood trickles from her split lip, copper taste on her tongue mixing with the dust and smoke she's breathing. Her uniform is torn at the shoulder where someone grabbed her roughly. Bruises bloom across her ribs where she was shoved against a desk. 4 members of the Quick Reaction Force lie motionless on the floor around her in spreading pools of dark blood. Good men, young men, dead men who never had a chance because they'd never been taught how to fight in close quarters, without their rifles, never learned what to do when the enemy is 6 inches from your face and your M4 is empty or jammed or knocked from your hands. The power grid is down. Communications are severed. The quick reaction reinforcements are still. Elena calculates, quickly running through distances and response times in her head, 11 minutes out. Maybe 12 if they're being cautious, moving tactical clearing rooms as they advance. 11 minutes might as well be 11 hours when you're staring down the barrel of a pistol held by a man who's already killed 4 people in the last 90 seconds. The hostile leader steps closer. Victor. She doesn't know his last name yet, but she will. She always learns the names eventually. He's maybe 52 years old, though violence ages men in ways that make calendars meaningless. 6'1", tall, 210 pounds, most of it muscle, going slightly soft around the edges, the way men in their 50s go soft even when they try to fight it. Scars on his knuckles that speak of bare-knuckle fighting. More scars on his neck disappearing under his tactical vest. The kind of scars that come from knives and broken bottles and the sort of violence that happens in places where there are no rules and no witnesses. Russian military tattoos barely visible at his wrists, faded blue ink that tells stories about where he's been and what he's done. Former Spetsnaz, probably. The way he moves, the way he holds himself, the economy of motion, and the absolute confidence. It all tells stories Elena doesn't want to read, but can't help understanding, because she's spent years teaching men to move exactly like this. His breath reeks of cigarettes and the particular kind of violence that comes from years of wet work. Not the clean violence of honest soldiers doing honest combat. The other kind. The kind that wakes you up at 3 in the morning with your heart hammering and your sheets soaked through with sweat from dreams you can't quite remember, but know were terrible. He grabs her tactical vest by the throat strap. That particular piece of gear most people ignore, just webbing designed to keep your vest from riding up when you're running or climbing. But in the wrong hands, in hands that know what they're doing, it becomes a handle, a control point, a way to lift a small woman right off her feet like she weighs nothing at all. Elena gasps, chokes, her boots leave the floor. She dangles in midair, all 5 feet 4 inches, and 128 pounds of her suspended by her own equipment like a puppet on strings. Who sent you? His voice is gravel and fury and decades of cigarettes. English with a thick accent that sounds like Moscow or St. Petersburg or somewhere else, cold where they breed men like this, men who do terrible things and sleep soundly afterward. The other 6 hostiles laugh, deep, ugly sounds that echo off concrete walls and make Elena's skin crawl. They see what everyone has always seen when they look at her. A small woman, supply officer, desk job, logistics, harmless, The kind of person who orders pens and manages inventory spreadsheets, while real warriors do real work, the kind of person who wouldn't know one end of a rifle from the other, the kind of person who faints at the sight of blood. They have absolutely no idea who they're holding. They have no idea that in approximately 11 seconds, 4 of them will be dead, and the other 3 will be wishing they were. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's back up. Let's start at the beginning of this particular day, this particular nightmare, this particular moment when everything changed. 6 hours earlier, Elena Graves sat in her cramped office in Building 347 Logistics Division Naval Base, Coronado, California. The office was exactly 8 feet by 10 feet. She'd measured it once late at night when she couldn't sleep, pacing the dimensions like a prisoner, learning the boundaries of her cell counting steps and calculating square footage, because doing math was better than thinking about why she couldn't sleep. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead with that particular frequency that gives some people headaches. The air conditioning rattled in its housing, blowing recycled air that smelled like stale coffee and photocopier toner and the accumulated breath of 1,000 boring meetings. Her desk was government-issue gray steel, scratched and dented from decades of use by people whose names she'd never know. Her chair squeaked when she moved a high-pitched sound that annoyed her, but not enough to file a maintenance request. The computer monitor in front of her displayed 17 Excel spreadsheets, each one tracking a different supply line into the base, each one color-coded and cross-referenced and maintained with the kind of obsessive attention to detail that made her good at this job, even though she hated every minute of it. This was her life now. This was safety. This was what invisible looked like. She wore reading glasses she didn't really need, perched on her nose like a disguise, like a costume she put on every morning to play the role of harmless bureaucrat. A cardigan over her uniform. Soft blue, the kind of thing that said harmless, said office worker, said don't look at me, I'm nobody important. Her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No makeup because makeup drew attention, and attention was the last thing she wanted. No jewelry except a plain watch that told time and nothing else. Lieutenant Elena Graves, 32 years old. 7 years in service if you counted by calendar a lifetime, if you counted by experience. Exemplary record in all things that didn't matter. Current assignment tracking ammunition inventory and supply deliveries for a base that went through bullets and beans at a rate that would bankrupt a small country. Nobody looked at her twice. That was the point. That was the entire goal of the last 4 years of her life. Be forgettable. Be invisible. Be so unremarkable that people's eyes just slide right past you like water off glass. The security briefing started at 1400 hours sharp because the military runs on punctuality like engines run on gasoline. Conference room B, 3rd floor of the administration building, the one with the broken blind on the west window that nobody ever fixed because why bother? Elena arrived 5 minutes early, took a seat in the back corner. Old habit. Always know where the exits are. Always keep the walls at your back. Always position yourself so you can see everyone but nobody pays attention to you. The room filled with officers. 23 of them, mostly men, mostly older than her, mostly wearing the kind of confidence that comes from never being questioned. Some she recognized from previous briefings. Most she didn't. In 4 years of working logistics, she'd perfected the art of being forgettable, and part of that art was not bothering to remember people who wouldn't remember her. Captain Vincent Harlan ran the briefing. 56-years-old career Navy ran the base like a tight ship because that's what good officers do. Fair, competent, maybe a little too by the book, but that wasn't always a bad thing in an institution that runs on rules and regulations and the assumption that following procedures will keep people alive. He stood at the front of the room with a clicker and a PowerPoint presentation that had too many slides and not enough actual information. Perimeter security has been upgraded. New protocols for visitor access. Standard threat assessment shows low probability of direct action against the base. We're at FP-Con Alpha, no changes anticipated. Elena listened with half her attention, the way you listen to something you've heard 100 times before. The other half of her attention studied the supply delivery reports she'd printed out that morning, the pages slightly crumpled from being folded in her pocket. 3 shipments in 2 weeks, food services, medical supplies, ammunition, all routine, all cleared through proper channels, all exactly the kind of boring logistics that made her job mind-numbing. But the vehicle plates were identical on all three manifests. Same plates, different driver IDs, different delivery times, different cargo, but the same California commercial plate number 8H4K729. That wasn't routine, that was wrong. That was the kind of discrepancy that meant someone was either incredibly sloppy with paperwork or deliberately trying to hide something. She raised her hand. Small movement. Hesitant. The kind of gesture that could be ignored if someone wanted to ignore it, the kind of gesture that screamed, "I'm not sure this is important enough to interrupt for." Captain Harlan noticed anyway because he was the kind of officer who actually paid attention. "Yes, Lieutenant Graves." "Sir." Her voice came out barely above a whisper. She hated that. Hated how small she sounded, how uncertain, how much she fulfilled every stereotype about women being too timid for military service. "I've noticed inconsistencies in the supply deliveries." The room shifted like a living thing, 23 officers turning to look at the quiet logistics officer in the back corner. She felt their eyes like physical weight, like hands pressing on her chest, making it hard to breathe. "Inconsistencies." Harlan prompted, his tone neutral but interested. "3 shipments in 2 weeks, different driver IDs, but same vehicle plates. All 3 times. The plates are registered to a commercial trucking company out of San Diego, but when I cross-reference with the company's manifest, these vehicles aren't scheduled for base delivery on these dates. It could be a clerical error, but it could also be..." "Graves." A voice cut across hers like a knife. Sharp. Dismissive. Male. Confident in the way that comes from never being told no. Lieutenant Garrett Sutherland, 38 years old. Quick Reaction Force Commander. The kind of officer who wore his authority like armor and his opinions like weapons. He sat 3 rows ahead of Elena, didn't bother turning around to address her, because why bother showing respect to someone so far beneath you? Stick to counting bullets, leave security to people who understand threats. The room erupted in chuckles, not quite laughter. Just enough sound to let Elena know her place. To remind her that supply officers don't question security protocols. To make sure she understood that her observations, her concerns, her 4 years of quiet vigilance didn't matter, because she was just the bullet counter, just the bean counter, just the person who made sure the real warriors had what they needed to do real work. Elena's face burned red. She could feel the heat spreading from her cheeks to her ears to her neck. She closed her folder, said nothing more. What was the point? Nobody was going to listen. Nobody ever listened. Small woman, quiet voice, wrong specialty. 3 strikes and you're out. Captain Harlan cleared his throat, and at least he had the decency to look uncomfortable. "Lieutenant Sutherland, let's maintain professionalism. However, Lieutenant Graves, our security teams have the situation well in hand. The deliveries have been cleared through proper channels. I appreciate your diligence, but there's no cause for concern." "Yes, sir." Elena's voice came out even quieter than before, barely audible over the hum of the air conditioning. Stupid, weak, invisible. Those words had followed her all her life like shadows, like ghosts, like chains she couldn't break. Small girl in school who got picked last for every team. Quiet teenager nobody remembered at reunions. College student who disappeared into the background of every photograph, the one people would point to years later and say, "Who's that? I don't remember her at all." She'd spent years trying to be loud, confident, aggressive. It never worked. The volume never fit right, like wearing someone else's shoes, like speaking someone else's language with an accent you couldn't shake. So eventually she became small instead. Hoped small meant safe. Hoped invisible meant protected. Hoped being overlooked meant being left alone. Hoped wrong. The briefing ended. Officers filed out, already forgetting the awkward moment, already moving on to more important things. Elena stayed in her seat until the room emptied, because standing up meant walking past people who might remember her, and she wanted to be forgotten as quickly as possible. Then she gathered her papers, adjusted her reading glasses, and walked back to Building 347, back to her 8x10 cell, back to Excel spreadsheets and supply manifests, and the careful construction of a life that didn't matter to anyone, least of all herself. But she kept thinking about those truck plates, about the inconsistency, about the way Sutherland had dismissed her without even turning around, like she was so far beneath his notice that eye contact would be wasted effort, about how many times in her life she'd been dismissed, underestimated, overlooked, treated like furniture, like wallpaper, like something that exists but doesn't matter. About how sometimes being overlooked was the only thing that kept you alive. About how sometimes being underestimated was the most dangerous weapon in your arsenal. 11 years earlier, summer 2014, Naval Special Warfare Center, Coronado. Elena Graves walked into the training facility for the first time as an instructor, not a student. 25 years old. 5 feet 4 inches of compact muscle and nervous energy and determination that bordered on obsession. She'd been training for this moment for 3 years. Been preparing her whole life really, even if she hadn't known it at the time. The facility was brutal architecture, concrete and steel, and the smell of sweat soaked so deep into the walls that no amount of bleach could touch it. The mat room stretched 50 feet on a side, padded floor that had absorbed a decade of impacts, bare walls except for a single American flag, windows set high enough that you couldn't see out nothing to distract from the work. 12 men waited for her on the mat. SEAL candidates, the ones who'd survived Hell Week in the grinder and all the other tortures designed to break human beings into components that could be rebuilt into weapons. They stood in a loose formation, sizing her up the way predators size up prey, the way men throughout history have sized up women and found them wanting. The smallest of them had 6 inches and 60 pounds on her. The largest was built like a mountain, 6'3", and probably 240 muscles on muscles, the kind of size that makes normal people feel small and inadequate. They didn't bother hiding their skepticism. A woman, teaching hand-to-hand combat to Navy SEALs, the best of the best, the hardest men in the hardest service. Some of them smiled, not friendly smiles, the kind of smiles that said, this should be entertaining, this should be fun watching this little girl try to teach us anything. Gentlemen, Colonel Raymond Stark's voice cut through the tension like a blade through silk. He stood near the door, 68 years old now, but still built like violence arms crossed over a chest that wouldn't quit. Back in 2014, he'd been 57, fresh off 20 years of making hard men harder. This is Chief Instructor Graves. You will address her as such. You will treat her with respect, and you will do exactly what she tells you to do when she tells you to do it. Clear, hooyah, they responded. Automatic, the conditioned response of men who've been trained to respond on command. But Elena heard the doubt under the word, heard the skepticism, heard the unspoken question really. Her chief instructor, Graves, learned the system I developed over 30 years of making men like you more dangerous than you have any right to be. She's been training with me for 3 years, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. She's better than any of you. She's probably better than me at this point, and I could still break most of you without breathing hard. And for the next 8 weeks, she owns you. She owns your time. She owns your body. She owns your pain. Questions. Silence. But one of the candidates bigger than the others, maybe 6'2" and 230, arms like bridge cables, the kind of build that opens doors and wins fights just by existing, took a half step forward, not quite challenging, not quite submitting, testing. Sir, no disrespect, but we've been through hand-to-hand training. We've all got combatives certifications. Level 2, Level 3. What's she going to teach us that we don't already know? Colonel Stark smiled. Not a nice smile. The smile of a man who's seen this play out 1,000 times and knows exactly how it ends. Why don't you ask her? The big candidate turned to Elena, looked down at her because he was 8 inches taller and probably thought that mattered. Ma'am, what are you going to teach us? Elena took off her jacket, rolled her shoulders, stepped onto the mat. Her voice came out steady, quiet, but not weak. Never weak when she was on the mat. This was her space, her domain, the one place where being small didn't matter. I'm going to teach you how to kill someone with a stapler, with a belt, with a magazine from your rifle, with their own bootlaces if that's all you've got. I'm going to teach you that size means nothing. That strength matters less than you think. That the only thing that matters in close quarters is leverage timing and the willingness to break another human being into pieces so small they'll need dental records to identify the body. She looked at the big candidate, really looked at him, studied his stance, his weight distribution, the way he held himself, already calculating. Step onto the mat. He did, confident, maybe a little amused. He probably outweighed her by 100 pounds, probably benched 315. Probably thought this was going to be a demonstration where she showed some cute technique that worked in theory, but would never survive contact with real violence, because real violence was messy and brutal and had nothing to do with technique. Try to grab me, Elena said. He reached for her. Not full speed, not trying to hurt her, just reaching like you'd reach for a handshake or a door handle. His hand came toward her shoulder in a lazy arc that assumed she wouldn't or couldn't evade. Elena moved. Her right hand deflected his reaching arm at the wrist. Small movement. Precise. His momentum carried him forward off balance in a way he didn't expect, because most people don't think about balance until they don't have it anymore. Her left hand came up palm strike to his elbow joint, not hard, just enough to collapse the structure. His arm bent wrong. She stepped through, rotating her hips, using his own body weight against him like judo, like aikido, like physics made violent. Her foot swept his ankle. He started to fall. She caught his falling arm, plied a standing arm, bar his elbow locked straight, her body weight levering against the joint in a way that would break bone if she added another 10 pounds of pressure. He gasped, tried to resist. She added pressure. Not much, just enough to make the point, just enough to make it hurt. Then her free hand shot up, 2 fingers extended, stopping a quarter inch from his eye. Close enough that he could feel her breath on his face. Close enough that he went completely still, because evolution has trained humans not to fuck around when something's aiming at their eyes. Your brachial nerve cluster, she said quietly, still holding the arm bar with one hand, while the other hovered near his face, is exposed right here. She moved her finger to his inner arm, just above the elbow, to a spot most people don't know exists. If I strike it with focused pressure, your arm goes numb for 40 seconds. Long enough for me to take your sidearm if you're carrying. Long enough to break your neck if I need to. Long enough to kill you 3 different ways before you can react. She released him. Step back, professional, clean, no gloating, just demonstration. The big candidate straightened, rubbing his arm eyes wide with the kind of understanding that only comes from experiencing something personally. That was 6 seconds, Elena said. In a real fight, you'd already be dead, in 3 different ways. Colonel Stark was nodding from the doorway, satisfied, vindicated. She's the one I told you about. The 12 candidates looked at Elena differently now, not with skepticism, with the particular attention soldiers give to someone who might keep them alive. With respect earned through demonstration rather than demanded through rank. Over the next 8 weeks, she taught them, really taught them. Not the sanitized combatives that looked good in demonstrations and made generals feel good about training budgets. The ugly stuff, the brutal efficiency of close quarters combat when your rifle jams, or you run out of ammunition, or you turn a corner and there's an enemy 6 inches from your face and you have half a second to decide between living and dying. She taught them Colonel Stark's method, the system he'd developed over 30 years of making hard men harder. Stark had served in Desert Storm in 1991, learned brutal close quarters combat in Iraqi building, clearing operations when the air war ended, and it came down to room fighting where your body armor didn't help and your training was all that mattered. He'd seen what worked when bullets stopped flying and it came down to hands and knives and desperate violence in confined spaces. He'd refined those lessons over decades, teaching Marine Force Recon, teaching SEAL teams, teaching anyone who'd listen. That size was just physics, and leverage was just geometry, and killing was just applied mathematics if you understood the formulas. But Elena also taught them her own refinements. The small adjustments that came from being smaller, weaker, perpetually underestimated. She showed them that being underestimated was a weapon if you knew how to use it. That quiet competence beat loud confidence every single time. That the most dangerous person in any room was the one nobody was watching because they seemed harmless. Throat strikes designed to collapse windpipes. Joint manipulation that could dislocate shoulders in under 2 seconds. Pressure points most people didn't know existed because anatomy textbooks don't usually include sections on how to cause maximum pain with minimum effort, how to turn a pen into a weapon, how to use someone's own body weight against them, how to fight 3 opponents simultaneously by making them get in each other's way, how to kill quietly with bare hands using techniques that left no marks and looked like natural causes if you did them right. She taught them to be invisible until the moment violence was required, then to be absolutely overwhelming, then to be invisible again. One of the 12 candidates stood out, Alexei Volkov, 28 years old. Russian-American third-generation parents had immigrated in the 70s back when the Cold War was still cold. Talented, arrogant, cocky in a way that usually got people hurt, but somehow worked for him. Undeniably skilled in ways that transcended normal training. He learned faster than the others. Moved with an efficiency that suggested prior training, though nothing in his file indicated formal martial arts background. Just natural aptitude and the particular ruthlessness that came from growing up somewhere hard, where fighting wasn't sport but survival. "You're good," Elena told him after a particularly brutal sparring session where he'd come closer than anyone else to actually tagging her. "Better than good, but you're reckless." "Reckless works," Alexei said, breathing hard, grinning through sweat and satisfaction. "I'm still standing. Against classmates, in training, with rules. In the real world, reckless means dead. Means you get one good hit and then someone shoots you while you're celebrating." His grin faded. Something shifted in his eyes, understanding, acceptance. "Then teach me to be careful." She did. Over 8 weeks, she poured everything Colonel Stark had taught her into these 12 men, and they absorbed it, changed, became something more dangerous than they'd been before, something more capable, something more likely to come home from wherever the Navy sent them. When they graduated, Colonel Stark pulled her aside. "You did good work, kiddo. Those 12 are going to be legends." "They already were legends," Elena said. "SEALs always are." "No," Stark shook his head. "They're going to be legends because of what you taught them. The difference between coming home and coming home in a box. They'll remember you, and they'll teach others. That's legacy. That's how you become immortal in this business." Legacy. Elena liked the sound of that word, liked the idea that she might matter, might leave something behind, might be more than just another face in another yearbook that nobody remembered. Over the next 7 years, she trained 73 Navy SEAL candidates. 6 classes of 12 students each, then one final class of 13 because the numbers worked out that way. 73 men who learned to fight the way she fought, who learned that being overlooked, underestimated, invisible was sometimes the greatest weapon in your arsenal. Who learned that size was just physics and strength was just one variable in an equation that had 100 other variables that mattered just as much or more. They called her Phantom. Not because she was scary, because when she moved, you didn't see her coming. Because she could be standing right next to you and you wouldn't notice until your world exploded into pain and suddenly you were on the ground wondering what the hell just happened. Some of those 73 went on to run their own SEAL teams. Some became instructors themselves, teaching her techniques to new generations, spreading the knowledge like a virus that made everyone more dangerous. Some died in combat, but fewer than the statistical average, because what she taught them worked. It kept them alive in situations where other operators died. It gave them edges they wouldn't otherwise have had. She wasn't famous, didn't want to be. Fame meant attention, and attention meant scrutiny. And scrutiny meant people asking questions she didn't want to answer. But her program became legendary in the quiet way that matters to professionals. Word spread through the SEAL community. If Phantom trained you, you were unkillable. If Phantom certified you, you were the deadliest operator in any room. It became a point of pride, a credential, a badge of honor, whispered in bars and training facilities and forward operating bases. Among those 73 were men whose names would matter later. Dominic Sterling, trained in 2016, combat medic, solid, reliable, would eventually become Master Chief with SEAL Team 3. Marcus Webb, trained in 2019, quiet kid from Pennsylvania, serious, asked good questions, never stood out but never screwed up. The kind of student who graduates without fanfare and goes on to have a solid career. And Cody Brennan, trained in her final class 2021, farm kid from Montana, 24 years old, dedicated, pure heart. The kind of student who showed up early and stayed late and absorbed every lesson like his life depended on it. Because it did. Elena Graves, aged 25 to 32, built a legacy out of violence and mathematics and teaching men to respect someone they'd initially dismissed. Built something that mattered. Built something that saved lives. Then in 2021, everything fell apart. The accident happened on a Tuesday. Spring morning April, the kind of California weather that makes you forget winter exists. Elena was running an advanced grappling session with her final class. 13 students all in their last week before graduation, all confident and skilled and ready to take what she taught them into the real world. Cody Brennan was her best student in this class, 24 years old. Farm kid from Montana who'd never seen the ocean until he joined the Navy. Quiet, dedicated, pure heart. The kind of student who made teaching feel like purpose instead of just work. "Run the sequence again," Elena called out from her position near the edge of the mat. "Brennan, you're the aggressor. Full speed. Davis, you're defending. Remember, this is advanced. If you fuck up, you get hurt. If he fucks up, he gets hurt. That's why we train. So when it matters, you don't fuck up." Cody nodded, stepped onto the mat. His training partner, another candidate named Davis, good kid, solid performer, nothing special, but nothing wrong, either set his stance. They'd run this sequence 20 times already. Advanced throw from a failed guard position. Difficult but not dangerous if you knew how to fall, and both of them knew how to fall, because Elena had spent weeks drilling proper break falls until they could do them in their sleep. Cody knew how to fall. Elena had taught him herself, had watched him practice 1,000 times, had certified him on this exact technique 3 days ago. He shot in for the takedown. Davis defended exactly as drilled, exactly as practiced. Cody transitioned, attempting the throw. His foot planted. The mat shifted beneath him. Quarter inch. Barely noticeable. But enough. Enough to change the angle. Enough to alter the trajectory. Enough to turn a routine drill into catastrophe. Cody's throw completed. He went airborne. Came down hard. Wrong. His shoulder impacted, first driving his head down at an angle that sent Elena's hindbrain screaming warnings a half-second too late to matter, because physics doesn't care about warnings and momentum doesn't care about intentions. The sound was wrong. Not the regular thud of body hitting mat, something that cracked, something that snapped, something that broke. Cody didn't move. Elena was at his side in 2 seconds flat, running on automatic on training on the emergency response protocols she drilled into herself over years of teaching dangerous techniques to dangerous men. "Nobody touch him. Davis, call the medics. Now. Everyone else back away. Give him space." Davis stood frozen, staring. His face had gone white like chalk, like paper, like death. "Davis, medics, move your ass, now." He moved, pulled out his phone with shaking hands that could barely hold it. Elena checked Cody's pulse. Present, strong. That was good. His breathing. Regular. Also good. But he wasn't moving, wasn't responding. His eyes were open but unfocused, staring at nothing, not tracking movement, not reacting to her voice. "Cody, can you hear me? Squeeze my hand if you can hear me." Nothing. No response. No movement. No indication that he was processing anything at all. The medics arrived in 4 minutes. Seemed like hours. Seemed like days. They stabilized Cody's neck with professional efficiency, got him on a backboard, into an ambulance. Elena rode with him, holding his hand, telling him it was going to be okay, even though she didn't believe it herself. It wasn't okay. C5, C6 vertebrae, fractured, spinal cord damage. The kind of injury that changes everything forever. The kind of injury that turns a 24-year-old SEAL candidate into a quadriplegic who'll spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair, watching other people do the things he'll never do again. The investigation took 3 weeks. They examined the mats with microscopes and chemical analysis, the facility with structural engineers, the training protocols with lawyers looking for liability. Elena's teaching methods with senior instructors who'd never taught her program but felt qualified to judge it anyway. Everything. Looking for blame, looking for liability, looking for the thing that went wrong so it could be fixed and this would never happen again. Their conclusion: equipment failure. The mat anchoring system had degraded over time. The adhesive that held the mats in place had weakened from age and use and the thousands of impacts it had absorbed over years of training. When Cody planted his foot for the throw, the mat shifted. Quarter inch. Enough to change the angle. Enough to turn a routine drill into catastrophe. Not Elena's fault. Not Cody's fault. Not Davis's fault. Just bad luck and degraded equipment and the inherent risks of training human beings to do violence to other human beings. But Elena couldn't accept that. couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't walk into the training facility without seeing Cody lying motionless on the mat, eyes open but empty, body present, but soul somewhere else. She visited him in the hospital every day for 2 weeks, watched him learn to accept that he'd never walk again, watched a 24-year-old kid grapple with the fact that his career, his dreams, his entire identity as a warrior had been taken away in 1 second of bad luck. "It's not your fault, Chief," he told her during one visit. His voice was steady, brave, the kind of bravery that comes from having no other choice. "We all knew the risks. I signed the waivers. I'd do it again." But Elena heard what he didn't say, saw it in his eyes, the fear, the grief, the monumental unfairness of being 24 years old and paralyzed from the chest down because a mat shifted a quarter inch at exactly the wrong moment. She requested a transfer that afternoon. Out of training, out of instruction, out of anything that involved putting students at risk, out of anything that mattered. Captain Harlan tried to talk her out of it. "Elena, the investigation cleared you. Equipment failure isn't your responsibility. You couldn't have predicted it. You couldn't have prevented it. It happened on my mat, in my program, under my watch. I'm responsible. You've trained 73 men. This was the first serious injury in 7 years. That's an incredible safety record. That's better than any other program in naval special warfare. One is too many. One broken student is one too many." Colonel Stark tried next, came to her apartment uninvited, sat on her couch, looked at her with those eyes that had seen 30 years of violence and somehow still held kindness. "You can't run from what you are, kiddo." "I'm not running. I'm protecting everyone else from my mistakes." "From what?" "From bad luck, from the inherent danger of preparing men for war. Elena, accidents happen. Equipment fails, people get hurt. That's not on you. That's just reality. Cody Brennan will never walk again because I didn't check the mats carefully enough. Because I didn't catch the degradation. Because I failed him. That's on me." The investigation found systematic adhesive degradation that required chemical analysis to detect. "You couldn't have caught it with visual inspection. You're not a materials engineer. You're an instructor, and a damn good one." But Elena couldn't hear it. The guilt had teeth. It tore at her in the dark hours of the morning, made her see Cody's face every time she closed her eyes, made sleep impossible and waking unbearable. She took the transfer. Logistics, supply management, inventory control, as far from training as she could get while still staying in the Navy, while still wearing the uniform, while still pretending she was the person she'd been before that Tuesday in April when everything changed. She packed up her apartment, put her training gear in storage, stopped practicing, stopped teaching, stopped being phantom, started being invisible instead, started being the person nobody noticed, started being safe. Colonel Stark watched her leave the training center for the last time. "You'll come back," he said. "Sooner or later, you'll remember who you are." "I know exactly who I am," Elena replied. "I'm the instructor who broke her best student. I'm the person who destroyed a kid's life. I'm someone who should never teach it again." 4 years passed. Elena Graves disappeared into Building 347, into spreadsheets and supply manifests, in the careful construction of a forgettable life. She gained weight. Not much. 10 pounds. Enough to soften her edges to make her look less like someone who trained warriors and more like someone who pushed paper. She wore reading glasses and cardigans. Let her hair grow out. Stopped looking like someone who could kill you with a magazine and started looking like someone's aunt who worked in an office. Nobody at the base knew about Phantom. Her service records showed the transfer, but not the details. Not the 73 students. Not the legendary program. Not the woman who'd taught Navy SEALs to be more dangerous than they had any right to be. She was just Lieutenant Graves. Quiet, competent, unremarkable. The kind of person you'd walk past in the hallway and not remember 5 minutes later. Safe, invisible, exactly what she wanted to be. Except safety was an illusion, and illusions don't survive contact with reality. On that Tuesday in December 2025 at 2300 hours, when the armory exploded and 12 hostile operators breached the perimeter using the exact trucks Elena had flagged 6 hours earlier, safety died. And Phantom woke up whether she wanted to or not. The explosions came in sequence. 3 of them, spaced 4 seconds apart, precisely calculated to maximize damage while minimizing collateral casualties. Professional work. Military work, the kind of thing that requires planning and expertise and resources. Elena was still in her office when the first one hit working late, because working late meant not going home to an empty apartment where she'd lie awake thinking about Cody Brennan. The building shook. Her coffee mug jumped off the desk and shattered on the floor in a spray of ceramic and cold coffee. The lights flickered. Emergency klaxons started wailing with that particular sound that means everything is wrong and it's about to get worse. She was out of her chair and moving before conscious thought caught up. Old training, old instincts. 4 years of suppression couldn't touch them, couldn't erase them, couldn't make her forget what her body knew how to do. The second explosion, closer, much closer, the armory. She knew the sound, knew what it meant. Someone had breached the outer perimeter and was destroying the base's weapon stockpiles with precision that spoke of inside knowledge. Her phone buzzed, emergency alert. All personnel to muster stations. Quick reaction force deploying to repel hostile action. Standard protocols that assumed the threat was external and manageable. The third explosion, different direction, communications hub. Taking out the base's ability to call for help, to coordinate response, to do anything except die in isolated pockets. Elena's tactical brain, the one she'd tried to bury under 4 years of logistics and spreadsheets, started calculating. 3 simultaneous targets. Coordinated, precise. This wasn't terrorism. This was a military operation. Well-planned, well-executed. The kind of thing that required months of reconnaissance and inside information. And the QRF was going to walk straight into it because Lieutenant Sutherland was competent at his job, but he'd never fought an enemy that understood military tactics this well. She ran, not towards safety like the emergency protocol said, toward the operations center where the QRF would stage before deploying. If this was coordinated, if this was professional, they'd hit the operations center next, catch the reaction force before it could react. She was right. Elena reached the operations center just as Lieutenant Sutherland and his team were gearing up. 12 men, good soldiers, brave, well-trained in most things, but not in close quarters combat, not in the brutal efficiency required when you can't use your rifle, when it's knife in hands and violence measured in inches instead of meters. Lieutenant, Elena gasped out of breath from running. It's a trap. The explosions are bait. They want you bunched up in, Graves, get to safety. This is combat. Real operators handle it. Sutherland didn't even look at her. Too busy checking his rifle, his gear, his team. Too busy being a warrior to listen to the supply clerk. Listen to me. 3 coordinated strikes means they know our response protocols. They'll hit this building next and catch you before you can deploy. You need to spread out, The door exploded inward. Shaped charge, precisely placed to maximize casualties. The blast wave knocked Elena off her feet like a giant hand swatting a fly. Her ears rang with that high-pitched whine that means temporary hearing damage. Smoke filled the room thick enough to choke on. Through the haze, she saw figures moving. Tactical gear, night vision, suppressed weapons. Professional. 12 hostiles flooded in like water through a broken dam. The QRF tried to respond, but they were bunched up exactly like Elena had warned, caught in the middle of gearing up. Half of them weren't wearing plates. None of them had anticipated an assault this fast, this close, this coordinated. The hostiles moved like surgical instruments, like machines, like people who'd done this before and knew exactly how it would end. Double tap shots, controlled, professional, no spray and pray, no panic fire, just clinical execution. 4 of Sutherland's men went down in the first 5 seconds. Clean headshots, no hesitation, no mercy, just efficiency. Sutherland returned fire, dropped 2 hostiles with controlled bursts that showed his training, but then his rifle jammed. Combat jam, failure to eject. The worst kind, because you can't clear it quickly. He tried anyway, didn't have time. A hostile closed on him faster than thought. Sutherland tried to defend with his rifle as a club, swung it like a baseball bat, didn't work. The hostile disarmed him with a technique Elena recognized because she'd taught that exact disarm to her 2017 class. Smooth, practiced, textbook. Then put 2 rounds in Sutherland's leg. Controlled shots. Not lethal. Designed to incapacitate without killing. They wanted prisoners. That was worse than wanting corpses. The remaining QRF members tried to fight, tried to do what they'd been trained to do, but they were outmatched in close quarters. The hostiles fought like they'd been born to it, like they'd trained for years doing nothing else, like someone had taught them techniques that made normal combatives look like kindergarten, like someone had taught them what Elena taught her students. The fight lasted 90 seconds. When it ended, 4 QRF members were dead. 8 were zip-tied, including Sutherland. The hostiles suffered 3 casualties. 9 remained operational. Acceptable losses for a successful assault. Elena had stayed low during the fight, pressed against the wall near an overturned desk. Invisible. Just another frightened logistics officer caught in the wrong place, playing the role she'd spent 4 years perfecting. One of the hostiles grabbed her roughly, zip-tied her hands behind her back with practiced efficiency, shoved her into the center of the room with the other prisoners. She stumbled, almost fell, caught herself, kept her head down, kept playing helpless. That's when the hostile leader entered. Victor, though she didn't know his name yet, she just saw a professional, 50-something, moving like violence incarnate, eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. Russian military bearing, Spetsnaz probably. The kind of operator who'd done wet work in Chechnya or Syria or a dozen other places where the rules don't apply. He surveyed the room with the detachment of a general surveying a battlefield. The dead, the prisoners, his own casualties. Did the math in his head. Acceptable losses. Mission proceeding according to plan. Then his eyes landed on Elena, small woman, supply officer, harmless, another asset to be secured and processed. He grabbed her tactical vest by the throat strap, that particular piece of gear most people ignore, lifted her off her feet like she weighed nothing, because to him, she probably didn't. Elena gasped, choked. Her boots left the floor. She dangled in midair, all 5 feet 4 inches, and 128 pounds of her suspended by her own equipment. This is where we came in. This is where the story started. Cold steel against her temple. 7 hostiles laughing. Dead men on the floor. Victor demanding answers she couldn't give. Who sent you? The other hostiles laughed. The prisoners watched with dead eyes. Sutherland tried to say something, got kicked in his wounded leg for the effort. Screamed, shut up. Elena dangled, analyzed, counted, left hand on her throat strap, right hand reaching for his sidearm. Weight distribution 70% on his front leg to support her weight. 3 feet from the desk edge. 2 hostiles at 6 o'clock in position covering the prisoners. 1 by the door watching for reinforcements. 3 more outside covering the perimeter based on the tactical coordination she'd observed. 4 years. 4 years she'd hidden. 4 years she'd tried to forget who she was. 4 years pretending that Phantom had died with Cody Brennan's paralysis. But muscle memory doesn't die. Training doesn't fade. And when you've spent 7 years teaching 73 men how to kill efficiently, your body remembers every lesson, even when your conscious mind wants to forget. Victor pressed the pistol barrel under her chin, cold steel on soft flesh. Last chance. Who sent you? Elena's knee drove upward, fast as a striking snake, precise as a surgical instrument, targeting the exposed nerve cluster on the inside of his elbow joint, the ulnar nerve, the same spot she'd shown that big SEAL candidate 11 years ago on her first day teaching, the same pressure point she'd taught 73 students to exploit because it works every single time if you hit it right. Victor's grip released. Pain reflex, automatic, can't be trained away no matter how tough you are because nerves don't negotiate. Elena dropped, twisted as she fell. Her bound hands swung up over his head in an arc. The plastic zip tie caught across his throat like a garrote. She pulled with her body weight, leveraged against his spine, used physics against biology. He gasped, clawed at his neck. The pistol fell from his hand, clattered on concrete. The hostile at 6 o'clock raised his rifle. Combat reflexes, threat assessment, engage the active threat, standard training. He fired. Elena kicked off the desk, used Victor's body as a pivot point. They spun. The 3-round burst hit Victor instead of her. Center mass, His body armor caught it, but the impact was enough to stagger him. She released him, let him fall, rolled, came up with his drop pistol in her bound hands. The grip was awkward with her hands behind her back, but she'd trained for this, had drilled worst-case scenarios until they became muscle memory. 2 shots, 2 bodies, the hostiles at 6 o'clock went down. Clean hits, center mass. They'd never see their families again. The hostile by the door fumbled for his weapon. Too slow, way too slow. He was reacting to something that had already happened, playing the catch-up with violence that moved faster than thought. Elena leaped, wrapped her legs around his neck in a flying triangle choke. They crashed into the wall. He was bigger, stronger, tried to slam her off, tried to use his size advantage the way most people try to use size advantage. But size was just physics. Leverage was just geometry. And she'd been teaching this exact technique for 7 years. She squeezed, locked her ankles, applied pressure to the carotid arteries, not the windpipe because windpipe takes too long, cut off blood flow to the brain, 8 seconds until unconsciousness, 14 seconds until brain damage. She counted in her head while he thrashed. She held it for 10 seconds. He stopped struggling, went limp. She released, dropped, stood, breathing hard, bleeding from a dozen small cuts from the explosion and the fight, but alive. The room was silent except for labored breathing and the distant sound of alarms and the ringing in her ears that wouldn't go away for hours. 4 hostiles down. 11 seconds elapsed from Victor's grip to the last body hitting the floor. Lieutenant Garrett Sutherland stared at her from the floor where he lay bleeding, blood seeping through his tactical pants from his leg wound. His face had gone white. Not from blood loss, though, that would come soon enough. From shock. From watching the quiet supply clerk transform into something else entirely. "What the hell are you?" Elena didn't answer. She was already moving, already transitioning from combat to tactical thinking, checking the hostiles for keys to her restraints, finding none, retrieving a knife from one of the bodies, working it against her zip ties with awkward sawing motions. They snapped after 8 seconds. She freed her hands, flexed her fingers, checked for damage, picked up a rifle from one of the fallen hostiles, checked the chamber, 30 rounds, good enough for now, moved to the window, peered out through the smoke and darkness. 3 more hostiles visible outside, setting up a defensive perimeter, waiting for their team to finish inside and extract the prisoners. And 1 more hostile in the room. The one she deliberately left alive. The one currently reaching for his radio to call for backup. Elena's boot pinned his wrist. She crouched beside him. Voice cold, calm. Nothing like the quiet logistics officer who'd sat in the back of security briefings. "How many?" He spat at her. Defiant, trained to resist interrogation. "Tough guy." She applied pressure. Small movement. Precise pain. A technique she'd taught SEAL Team 3 for field interrogations. Not torture, just the application of anatomical knowledge to nerve clusters that made cooperation inevitable. She pressed her thumb into the soft tissue just below his wrist, where nerves run close to the surface. "How many?" 12, he gasped through gritted teeth. 12 of us, but it doesn't matter. When they realize you've killed half the team, they'll come to finish this. You're already dead. You just don't know it yet." Elena zip-tied him with his own restraints. Poetic justice. "We'll see." She moved to free Sutherland, cut his zip ties with the knife. He tried to stand, couldn't. The leg wound was bad. Not arterial, but bad enough. He'd need surgery. Soon. "Graves," he whispered. His voice was shaky, shock setting in. "How did you—" The operations room door exploded inward for the second time that night. 8 hostiles flooded in, the rest of the assault team. They'd heard the gunfire, radioed their captured teammate, gotten no response or gotten a response that meant trouble. Come to investigate, come to finish the job. Found their teammates dead, found their prisoners freed, found one small woman standing in the center of the carnage, holding an empty rifle with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. Elena had already checked. 9 rounds fired. Magazine depleted. The rifle was useless except as a club. She dropped it. No point pretending. Sutherland tried to stand, failed, fell back. The other surviving QRF members were wounded, exhausted, zip-tied at the ankles. They couldn't fight, couldn't help, could only watch. It was hopeless. 8 armed trained professional operators against 1 unarmed woman and several wounded men who could barely move. The hostile commander entered. Mountain of a man, 6'5", 240, body armor that looked like it could stop a truck, carrying a combat knife that belonged in a medieval torture chamber. He saw his dead team, 4 bodies, saw Viktor Volkov bleeding on the floor from the friendly fire round trying to push himself upright, saw Elena standing in the center, blood-spattered, empty-handed. But her stance told a story, the way she held herself, the way her weight was distributed, the absolute lack of fear in her eyes. The commander stopped, studied her. Professional assessment, threat evaluation. Something in her bearing made him hesitate. His eyes widened with recognition. And something that might have been fear. Phantom. The word dropped like a bomb in the quiet room. His team hesitated, looked at each other, looked at their commander, looked at Elena with new understanding. They had heard the stories. Every special operations professional had heard about Phantom, the ghost who trained Navy SEALs, the woman who could kill you with a magazine, a belt, a smile. The legend who'd built a program so brutal, so effective, that her students were considered the most dangerous close-quarters operators in the world. But Phantom was retired. Phantom had disappeared 4 years ago. Phantom was just a story told in training facilities and forward operating bases. A myth, a legend, not real. Except she was standing right in front of them, covered in their teammates' blood. Viktor Volkov pushed himself upright, bleeding from his mouth where the zip tie had damaged his throat. The body armor had saved him from the rifle round, but he was injured, angry, humiliated. "You're retired," he said, voice rough like gravel, uncertain for the first time since entering the room. "You don't do this anymore." Elena's hands moved without conscious thought, checked her pockets, found a government-issue ballpoint pen, standard supply office equipment, the kind of thing she ordered by the case, clicked it once, tested the weight, spun it between her fingers with the unconscious grace of someone who'd turned everyday objects into weapons 1,000 times. Close quarters combat wasn't about guns or knives. It was about improvisation, about turning anything into a weapon, about the willingness to do whatever violence was required with whatever tools were available, about understanding that a pen could be just as deadly as a pistol if you knew where to put it. She'd taught 73 men that lesson. Time to remind everyone what it meant. Her voice came out steady, quiet, deadly, the voice of Phantom, the voice she'd tried to bury for 4 years. "Retirement's over." Then Elena Graves moved, and the room learned why they called her Phantom. What happens next isn't a fight. It's a demonstration in applied violence. It's a masterclass in efficiency. It's proof that 7 years of teaching leaves marks that 4 years of hiding can't erase. The nearest hostile is Carter. She recognizes him instantly, even through the tactical gear and face covering. Trained him in 2017. Second-class 5th student, knife specialist, cocky, then professional now. He's reaching for his sidearm muscle memory, taking over. But his eyes are still processing the impossible fact that his old instructor is standing in front of him covered in blood. That half-second of recognition costs him everything. Elena closes the distance. 3 steps. The pen drives into the soft tissue behind his knee. Not deep. Doesn't need to be deep. Just needs to hit the pop-light teal nerve cluster she taught him about 8 years ago. The one most combatives programs don't even mention because it requires surgical precision to target in combat. She has surgical precision. Carter's leg buckles. Conditioned response. Can't be trained away. As he falls, Elena's hand is already moving. She strips his knife from its sheath. Same motion she drilled into him hundreds of times during training. Smooth, practiced, automatic. The knife feels right in her hand. Combat blade, 7 inches. Good balance. She recognizes the model. K-Bar Becker BK2. She'd recommended this specific blade to her 2017 class. Told them the weight distribution was optimal for close work. Carter's still falling when she moves to the next target. Lynch, 240 pounds of wrestler from Iowa. She trained him in 2018. Grappling specialist. Strong enough to break bones with leverage alone. He's already moving, trying to tackle her, using his size advantage the way she taught him. But she also taught him a version of the defense that had a deliberate flaw. Insurance policy. Because Elena Graves spent 7 years knowing that some students might turn, might sell out, might end up on the wrong side of a conflict. So she taught them techniques that worked 99% of the time, except against her. Lynch shoots in low, perfect form, textbook takedown. His training is evident in every movement. Would work on almost any opponent in the world. Elena isn't almost any opponent. She pivots. Small movement, 6 inches to the left. Uses the edge of the overturned desk as a fulcrum point. Lynch's momentum carries him forward into the obstacle. His shoulder hits the desk corner. She helps by adding force with her knee, driving him into the improvised barrier. His collarbone snaps. The sound is distinct, clean, musical almost. He roars in pain, the sound echoing off concrete walls. Elena's already past him, knife spinning in her hand, moving toward Williams. Williams, striker, Muay Thai background before he joined the Navy. She trained him in 2019, last year before everything fell apart. Good student, quick learner. Had a girlfriend named Sarah he wanted to marry, talked about her constantly. During water breaks, showed everyone pictures of the ring he was saving up for. Wonder what happened to those plans. Wonder what series of bad decisions led him here, pointing a suppressed rifle at his former instructor in a smoke-filled room on a burning naval base. He fires. 3-round burst. Controlled. Professional. His form is textbook. Exactly what she taught him. The rounds go wide. Not because his aim is off, because Elena's already moving in a pattern he can't predict. Can't predict because she never taught it to him. Kept some techniques private. Insurance policy. Just for situations exactly like this. She closes inside his rifle's effective range. Too close for him to bring the barrel around without exposing himself. He tries anyway. Tries to use the rifle as a bludgeon. Buttstock to the face. Devastating if it connects. It doesn't connect. Elena ducks under the swing. Comes up inside his guard. The knife flashes. Once. Twice. Shallow cuts across his firing hand. Flexor tendons. Nothing fatal. But his fingers spasm involuntarily. The rifle falls from nerveless hands. Her elbow drives into his solar plexus. The strike is precise. Calculated. Targets the celiac plexus, that cluster of nerves that controls breathing. He doubles over, diaphragm spasming, unable to draw breath. She brings her knee up, meets his descending face. Cartilage crunches. Blood spray decorates the concrete floor. Williams goes down hard. Stays down. 3 hostiles eliminated in 18 seconds. The room smells like copper and fear, and the particular ozone scent that follows violence like perfume follows beautiful women. The 5 remaining hostiles aren't hesitating anymore. They're professionals. They've processed the threat. Adjusted tactics. They spread out, create angles, make it impossible for her to engage one without exposing herself to others. Good strategy, textbook multiple opponent tactics. She taught some version of it to every class, how to overwhelm a single combatant through coordinated positioning. But she also knows the counter. Because she designed the original technique, she knows its weaknesses, its blind spots. The places where coordination becomes liability when the defender knows what to look for. The operations room is maybe 30 feet by 40. Concrete walls, metal desks, computer equipment, filing cabinets. Not much room to maneuver. But enough. Barely enough if you know what you're doing. Elena moves toward the filing cabinets, puts her back against them, narrows the angles, forces the hostiles to approach from a more limited arc. Basic defensive positioning, but executed with absolute precision. One of them tries to flank, circles left, professional movement, trying to get behind her, create a crossfire situation where she can't defend against both angles. She's already moving, grabs the office chair, government issue wield, probably weighs 40 pounds and throws it, not at the flanking hostile, at the overhead light fixture. The light explodes, glass rains down in glittering shards. The room's illumination drops by half. Emergency lighting kicks in red and pulsing, creating shadows that dance and shift and make targeting difficult. The flanking hostile hesitates. Half a second. Trying to track her in the reduced visibility, trying to acquire target in the strobing red light. Elena doesn't hesitate. She never hesitates. She flows forward, low, under his sight line. The knife comes up, finds the inside of his thigh. Femoral artery, deep cut, precise angle. He screams, tries to apply pressure. Blood pulses between his fingers in rhythm with his heartbeat. He's got maybe 3 minutes before unconsciousness. 6 before death if the medics don't reach him. She's already past him, already engaging the next target. 4 hostiles left, plus Victor, who's struggling to his feet, one hand pressed against the gunshot wound in his armor, the other reaching for a backup weapon. The next hostile is smart, doesn't close, keeps distance, uses his rifle. Short controlled bursts, pinning fire, trying to keep Elena behind cover while his teammates reposition. Standard suppression tactics. By the book. Effective against most targets. Elena isn't most targets. She never has been. She tracks the firing pattern. 3-round bursts, 4-second intervals. He's being conservative with ammunition. Disciplined, professional. The intervals are consistent, predictable. Predictability is fatal in close quarters. On the 4th interval, she moves. Doesn't run toward him. Runs parallel. Uses the desks as cover. Serpentine pattern. Makes herself a difficult target. The hostile adjusts fire. Tracks her movement. Leads his shots like a hunter leading a running deer. But he's leading them wrong because Elena's pattern isn't random. It's designed, choreographed, drawing him into a rhythm, making him think he's about to connect, making him commit to the pattern. She stops. Sudden, complete. Drops flat behind a desk. His burst goes high. He's already committed to the lead. The rounds impact where she would have been if she'd maintained speed and trajectory. She's up again. Closing distance. He tries to adjust. Too slow. His training is good, but not good enough. He's never fought someone who understands his training better than he does. Who designed his training? Who knows every weakness in every technique? Elena grabs the rifle barrel, pulls, uses his grip strength against him. He holds on trained response, never let an enemy disarm you, and his forward momentum carries him off balance. She redirects, adds force, uses physics, slams him face first into the concrete wall. His nose breaks. Blood spray decorates the gray concrete like abstract art. He staggers backward, disoriented pain, overwhelming his tactical awareness. Her knife finds the back of his knee, severs the popliteal tendon. He collapses. Won't be walking for months. Won't be running for years, if ever. The fight is over for him. 3 hostiles left, plus Victor, who's now armed with a Sig Sauer P226, holding it with both hands despite the pain. Breathing hard. His throat is swelling from the zip-tie garrote. Purple bruises blooming across his neck like poisonous flowers. Enough! Victor's voice is damaged. Rough. Every word clearly painful. Stand down or I execute the prisoners, all of them, starting with your lieutenant. His pistol swings toward Sutherland, toward the wounded QRF members zip-tied on the floor, helpless, vulnerable, easy targets who can't run and can't fight and can only die if Victor decides they should. Elena freezes, calculates. Distance to Victor 20 feet. 3 hostiles between them with clear lines of fire. Even if she moves now, even if she reaches him before he can react, he'll have time to fire. Multiple shots. Sutherland's already wounded. Can't move fast. Easy target. The math doesn't work. Not this angle. Not this configuration. She needs a different approach. Needs to change the equation. Needs leverage that doesn't exist yet. Viktor Volkov, she says, voice steady, conversational, like they're discussing weather instead of standing in a room full of blood and broken bodies. Brother of Alexei Volkov, former Spetsnaz, defected 2018, currently running private military contractor operations. Ashkelon Group, 200 operators across 3 continents. Annual revenue approximately 50 million. Not bad for a defector. Victor's eyes narrow. Surprised she knows. Surprised she's done her homework. You know my name? I know everything about you. I killed your brother in Damascus, August 2020, classified black operation. He was selling SEAL close quarters combat tactics to Russian intelligence. The techniques I taught him. He was going to get my other students killed, so I stopped him. You murdered him. Victor's finger moves closer to the trigger. Pressure building, decision imminent. Executed him like an animal in a foreign city. My brother trusted you, said you were the best instructor he'd ever had, and you killed him. I eliminated a traitor. Elena shifts slightly, small movement, repositioning, trying to improve her angle without being obvious about it. He was good, best student in his class, talented, dedicated. Then he got greedy, sold out his teammates for $2 million. How much are you getting paid for this extraction? This isn't about money. Victor's grip on the pistol tightens. His knuckles are white. This is about family, about honor, about making you pay for what you took from me. Alexei was my brother, my only family. You took him from me. Your brother took himself out when he chose betrayal over loyalty. You want to blame someone? Blame whoever offered him the money. Blame the system that let him fall through the cracks. But don't blame me for doing my job. One of the three remaining hostiles moves, trying to flank again, trying to get behind Elena while Victor has her attention. Standard tactics. Create crossfire. Eliminate the threat from multiple angles. She tracks the movement with a peripheral vision. Doesn't turn, doesn't acknowledge, but her body adjusts. Slight weight shift. Preparation. Coiling. Your job. Victor spits blood. The throat damage is worse than Elena thought. He's probably got internal bleeding. Might not survive the next hour, even if this ends peacefully. Your job was to train warriors, not to execute them in foreign cities like an assassin, not to murder my brother in cold blood. My job was to protect American operators from threats foreign and domestic. Alexei became a threat. I eliminated him. Same thing I'm about to do to you if you don't put down that weapon. Big words from someone who's outnumbered 4-1. Elena smiles. It's not a nice smile. It's the smile Phantom wore when teaching students their final lessons. The ones about humility, about respect, about never underestimating someone because of their sex or gender or quiet voice. Victor, I trained 73 Navy SEALs over 7 years. Best close quarters combat program in naval special warfare history. You brought 12 operators to this base. I've already killed or incapacitated 8. Your 3 remaining men are about to learn why your brother called me the most dangerous person he'd ever met. You're out of weapons, out of position, out of options. One wrong move and I execute your lieutenant, then the others. One by one, make you watch. You're not going to shoot him, because then I'll kill you. And you know it. You've seen what I can do. You watched me take down 8 of your men. You think 20 feet and 3 hostiles will save you. Victor's expression shifts, uncertainty creeping in through the cracks in his confidence. Fear taking root in soil that's supposed to be barren. Good. Fear means hesitation. Hesitation means mistakes. Mistakes mean opportunities. The flanking hostile makes his move. Commits, tries to grab Elena from behind. Get her in a headlock. Standard subdual technique. Control the head, control the body. She was waiting for it. Had been waiting since he started moving. Her head snaps backward. Headbutt. Catches him square in the face. His nose breaks with a wet crunch. His grip loosens. She spins inside his arms. Breaks the hold. Her elbow finds his throat. Precise strike. Targets the larynx, crushes the cartilage. He can't breathe. Can't scream. Just makes wet gasping sounds as he falls to his knees, hands at his throat, drowning in air. The second hostile tries to tackle her while she's engaged. Big mistake. She uses his momentum. Hip throw, modified judo technique from fundamentals she learned before she ever met Colonel Stark. He flies over her shoulder, lands on his back, hard. Wind knocked out, ribs probably cracked. Maybe a vertebra if he landed wrong. She's on him instantly, knee on his chest, knife at his throat. Enough pressure to draw blood, but not enough to kill, yet. Victor, she calls out, doesn't look away from her captive, can't afford to break eye contact, can't afford to give him hope. Last chance. Surrender now or watch another one of your men die. Your choice. Make it quick. The final hostile raises his rifle, aims at Elena's head. Center mass shot. Point blank. 7 feet. Can't miss at this range. Even if she moves, he'll adjust. Track her. Put her down. Then Lieutenant Garrett Sutherland moves, despite the leg wound that's leaking blood, despite the pain that must be overwhelming, despite being the man who dismissed Elena Graves as a supply clerk who should stick to counting bullets, despite having watched his entire team get slaughtered in under 2 minutes. He throws himself sideways, puts his body between Elena and the hostile, takes the 3-round burst meant for her. Body armor catches 2 rounds. The impacts sound like hammers on steel. The 3rd round punches through where the plates meet at the shoulder, blood spray. Sutherland goes down hard. But his sacrifice creates an opening, a gap, a moment where the hostile is staring at Sutherland instead of tracking Elena. A moment of shock because nobody expects a wounded man to throw himself into gunfire. That moment is all she needs. It's all she's ever needed. Elena's already moving. Leaves her captive with the knife still at his throat. Flows toward the shooting hostile. Her body moves with the unconscious grace that comes from 7 years of teaching the same movements over and over until they're more instinct than thought. She reaches him before he can reacquire target. Disarms him. 3-move sequence burned into muscle memory. Strike to the wrist. Pain compliance. Strip the rifle from weakened grip. Buttstock to the face. Kinetic energy plus hard surface equals unconsciousness. He drops like a puppet with cut strings. Now it's just Victor. 20 feet of space between them. One wounded PMC commander with a pistol and internal injuries that are probably fatal. One former instructor covered in other people's blood. The room smells like cordite and copper and death. Emergency lighting pulses red. Somewhere in the distance, sirens wail. Reinforcements coming. Too late to matter for this fight, but soon enough to matter for what comes after. Your move, Elena says. Victor looks around the room. His team, dead or incapacitated, every single one. His mission, failed. His revenge, slipping away like water through fingers. He's bleeding internally, probably in shock, definitely dying. But he's still holding the pistol. Still has it trained on Sutherland, who's now bleeding from a shoulder wound in addition to the leg injury. Still has leverage. Still has options. Still has one card left to play. I could still kill him, Victor says, voice barely a whisper. The throat damage is critical now. Every word is agony. Might not get you. But I could take him with me. Make you watch another student die. Another person you failed to protect. You could, Elena agrees. Takes a step forward. Slow, deliberate, non-threatening. But then this ends with me breaking your neck. And you die knowing you failed. Failed your mission. Failed your brother. Failed everyone who trusted you to get this right. You die knowing you accomplished nothing except adding your name to a list of people who underestimated Phantom and paid for it. He trusted you, Alexei, called you every week from deployment, told me about his instructor, said you were the best he'd ever had, said you made him into something special, and you killed him like he was nothing, like he was garbage to be disposed of. He was nothing. Elena's voice is cold now, all the warmth gone. This is Phantom talking, the instructor who spent 7 years teaching men to survive, who watched one of her best students betray everything she taught him. The moment he sold out his teammates, he became nothing. Just another traitor, just another target, just another problem that needed solving. I don't mourn traitors, I eliminate them. He was my brother. He was a SEAL. He knew the price of betrayal, knew what would happen if he got caught. He chose money over honor. That's on him, not on me, not on anyone except him. Victor's hand trembles. The pistol wavers. He's fading, blood loss, shock, dying man trying to hold on to the last shreds of purpose, trying to find meaning in meaningless violence. I spent 2 years planning this, he whispers. 2 years tracking you. Found out you disappeared. Gone into hiding. Took me 18 months just to locate you in this logistics position. Another 6 months to plan the assault. Coordinate the team. Get the equipment. All for this moment. All to make you pay for what you took from me. I'm still standing, Elena says. Your brother's still dead. Your team's destroyed. Your revenge failed? How's that feel? Victor's expression changes. The rage drains away like water from a broken vessel, replaced by something else. Something that might be respect, or recognition, or the particular clarity that comes when you're dying and all the bullshit falls away and you see things as they really are for the first time in years. He was right about you, Victor says, voice fading, getting quieter with each word. Each word might be his last. Alexei, he said you were the best. Said if he ever had to fight you, he'd lose. I didn't believe him. Thought he was exaggerating. Being dramatic. Russians are dramatic, you know, it's in our blood. But he was right. You are the best. The best I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot in 52 years. Doesn't change what he did, doesn't change what you did, doesn't change anything, except maybe you understand now why I'm still alive and he's not. No. Victor lowers the pistol. Not much, just a few degrees. Enough to not be an immediate threat. But it changes what I'm about to tell you, because I'm dying anyway, can feel it. Internal bleeding, cold spreading from my core. Maybe 10 minutes left, maybe less. So why not tell the truth? Why not give you one last gift? Elena tenses. This could be a trick, could be distraction, could be the equipment failure, Victor says. 2021, your student, the one who got paralyzed. Cody Brennan, Montana farm kid. Your best student that year. That wasn't an accident. The room tilts. Not physically, just in Elena's perception. Like reality has shifted slightly off its axis. Like the ground beneath her feet suddenly isn't as solid as she thought. What? The mat anchors that failed, we sabotaged them. 6 months before the accident, one of my inside men, former student of yours actually, turned for money, good money. He loosened the adhesive, made it look like age degradation. Chemical process that mimicked natural breakdown. Waited for the failure. Waited for someone to get hurt. Phase 1, revenge for Alexei. We wanted you broken, wanted you to quit, wanted you vulnerable. Easier to kill when you're not surrounded by warriors, when you're not teaching men to be dangerous. Thought the guilt would destroy you, and it did, didn't it, watching you disappear into that logistics position? That was almost as satisfying as killing you would have been. Something breaks inside Elena. Not breaks like shattering, breaks like a bear releasing pressure that's been building for 4 years. The guilt, the self-blame, the crushing weight of responsibility for Cody Brennan's paralysis, the sleepless nights, the constant replay of that moment. The knowledge that she'd destroyed a good kid's life. It wasn't her fault, wasn't her training, wasn't her negligence. It was murder. Attempted murder through proxy, using her own student as ammunition, using a good kid's broken body as a weapon against her. Who? Her voice is barely audible. Dangerous. The kind of quiet that precedes storms. Who was your inside man? Which one of my students betrayed us? Victor smiles, blood on his teeth, red staining his lips, peace on his face. Does it matter? He's probably long gone by now. Took his money, disappeared into whatever hole contractors disappear into when the job's done. That's how it works. Loyalty lasts as long as the paycheck. After that, you're just ghosts. Give me a name. Or what? You'll kill me. Look at me, I'm already dead. Internal bleeding. Can feel it spreading. Cold. Numb. Maybe 5 minutes left now. You want revenge, you're too late. We're all too late in the end. Elena starts to move forward. Stops. Because Victor's right. He's dying. She can see it now. Really see it. The pallor, the labored breathing, the way he's holding himself, trying to minimize movement, trying to keep the internal damage from spreading. Catastrophic internal injuries from the friendly fire round that hit his armor. Blunt force trauma, organs rupturing, blood filling his abdominal cavity. He's got minutes. Not hours, maybe not even minutes, maybe seconds. The name, she repeats. One last time, one last chance. Victor's smile widens, peaceful almost, resigned. A man who's made peace with dying. Maybe I'll take it with me. Final act of defiance, knowing you'll never find him, never get closure, never know which of your precious 73 students betrayed you. That seems fitting, doesn't it? Phantom haunted by ghosts she can't identify. Bootsteps echo in the hallway. Multiple pairs, heavy, fast, quick reaction force. Real reinforcements this time. Finally arriving after the shooting stopped and the damage is done, and all that's left is counting bodies and trying to understand what the hell happened. Victor hears them too. Ah, your rescue, right on time. Except I'm not going to make it to interrogation. And without me, you'll never know the truth. You'll spend the rest of your life wondering. Which student who betrayed Phantom? That's my gift to you. That's my revenge. Not your death, your doubt. Elena closes the distance. 5 steps. Victor doesn't raise the pistol, just watches her approach. Curious, waiting to see what she'll do, waiting for the end that's coming, whether she hastens it or not. She crouches in front of him, eye level, voice barely a whisper, close enough that only he can hear, close enough that her words are just for him. I don't need the name, I'll find him anyway. Because whoever he is, he's still using the techniques I taught him, still moving the way I taught him to move, still thinking the way I taught him to think. And when I find him, and I will find him, he's going to learn what happens when you betray Phantom. He's going to learn that some lessons are permanent, that some debts can't be paid with money, that some sins don't get forgiven. Victor nods slowly, approving, satisfied. There she is, the woman my brother feared. Not the quiet logistics officer, not the guilty instructor who ran away. The predator, the killer, Phantom. Retirement's over, Elena says. Good. Victor coughs, more blood, darker now. The world's more interesting with you in it, even if I won't be around to see what happens next. The doors burst open. Quick reaction force floods in. 20 Marines in full tactical gear. Weapons raised, flashlights cutting through the smoke like searchlights through fog. Freeze hands where I can see them. Elena raises her hands slowly, still holding the knife, lets it fall, clatters on concrete, stands, steps back, non-threatening posture, professional, calm. The fight is over, time for different protocols. Captain Vincent Harlan pushes through his men, takes in the scene. His face cycles through shock, confusion, recognition. He's trying to process what he's seeing, trying to reconcile the quiet supply officer with the woman standing in the center of 8 incapacitated hostiles. Elena, what the hell happened here? Before she can answer, another voice cuts through. Stand down, Marines. That woman just saved your entire base. Colonel Raymond Stark enters the room. 68 years old, moving like a man 20 years younger. Sidearm in hand, eyes scanning the tactical situation with practiced efficiency, taking in everything with the assessment of someone who's been in more combat than most people can imagine. He sees Elena, sees Victor, sees the 8 incapacitated hostiles, does the math in 2 seconds. Jesus, kiddo, you've been busy. Elena doesn't respond, can't respond, because the adrenaline is wearing off now. The combat high is fading, and all the pain comes flooding in at once. Physical pain from a dozen minor wounds, emotional pain from 4 years of buried guilt, psychological pain from learning the truth about Cody Brennan, from knowing that her guilt was manufactured, that she was sabotaged, that someone she trusted betrayed her. Her knees buckle. Stark catches her, holds her upright. Strong hands, steady. I've got you. I've got you. You did good. You did so good. Captain Harlan barks orders. Get medics in here now. Treat the wounded. Secure the prisoners. Someone get Lieutenant Sutherland medical attention immediately. Move. The QRF moves with purpose. Organized chaos. Professionals doing their jobs. Medics rush to Sutherland. To the wounded QRF members. Even to the hostile with the crushed larynx, though he's probably not going to make it. Stark guides Elena to a chair, sits her down. She's shaking now, hands trembling. Delayed shock, normal response to extreme stress. Her body finally catching up to what her mind already knows. She almost died. Multiple times, in multiple ways. Ray, she whispers. Cody, it wasn't an accident. They sabotaged the equipment. Victor told me before he died, one of my students, one of mine betrayed us, hurt Cody on purpose, to get to me. 4 years I blamed myself for something that wasn't even my fault. Stark's expression hardens, goes cold in a way Elena's rarely seen. We'll find him, whoever he is. We'll find him and we'll make sure he answers for it. For Cody, for you, for everyone. It's not my fault, Elena continues, voice breaking. 4 years of dammed up grief flooding through the cracks. 4 years. 4 years I blamed myself. 4 years I hid. 4 years I let guilt destroy me. And it wasn't even real. It was murder, an attempted murder through proxy, using my student as bait, as ammunition, as a weapon against me. Elena, look at me. Stark's voice is firm, commander voice, the one that cuts through panic and confusion and brings people back from the edge. Look at me. She does, meets his eyes, sees compassion there, and pride, and something that might be vindication. You didn't hide, Stark says. You survived. Survived long enough to find the truth. Survived long enough to protect your team tonight. Survived long enough to become Phantom again. That's not hiding, that's enduring. And enduring is the hardest thing a warrior can do. Medics arrive at Elena's position, start trying to treat her wounds. She waves them off. I'm fine. Treat the lieutenant first. He took a bullet meant for me. He's priority. Ma'am, you're bleeding from multiple lacerations and... I said I'm fine. Sutherland gets treated first. That's an order. The medic hesitates, looks at Stark. The colonel nods. The medic moves to Sutherland. Captain Harlan approaches. His face is unreadable. Processing. Trying to understand. Trying to fit pieces together that don't seem to fit. Lieutenant Graves, I need to understand what happened here. Who are these hostiles? How did you... He stops, looks at the bodies. The efficiency of the violence. The professional nature of the takedowns. The way someone 5'4" and 128 eliminated 8 trained operators. Who are you? Before Elena can answer, Victor laughs. Wet sound, painful. He's still conscious. Still a tie. Barely. The medics haven't reached him yet. Maybe they're prioritizing Americans. Maybe they can see he's too far gone to save. You really don't know. Victor's voice is failing, getting quieter with each word. Each word might truly be his last now. Captain, you've had Phantom working in your logistics department for 4 years. The most dangerous close-quarters combat instructor in naval special warfare history. The legend. The ghost. And you had her counting bullets. Harlan's eyes widen. He turns to Elena, really looks at her for the first time, seeing her instead of just looking past her. Your chief instructor Graves, the one who ran the advanced program, the Phantom. Elena doesn't confirm or deny, just sits there, bleeding, shaking, trying to process everything that's happened in the last 30 minutes, trying to understand what comes next, trying to figure out who she is now that Phantom is back, whether she wanted it or not. Stark answers for her. Captain, this is Elena Graves, former chief instructor for advanced close quarters combat, trained 73 SEAL candidates over 7 years. Best program the Navy ever had. She requested transfer 4 years ago after a training incident, went into logistics, tried to disappear, tried to be invisible. Why? Harlan asks. Genuine confusion, genuine incomprehension. Guilt, Victor whispers from his position against the wall, blood pooling beneath him now, life draining away with each heartbeat. Same reason I came here. Same reason this all happened. Guilt and revenge and the things we do when we lose people we love. Except her guilt was manufactured. Mine was real. And now I'm dying while she lives. Funny how that works. Funny how his breathing stops. Just stops. Like someone flipped a switch. Like a machine powering down. The medics rush over, work frantically. Chest compressions, emergency procedures. But it's theater. Victor Volkov has been dying since 23:20 hours. Just took 33 minutes to finish the job. Time of death, 23:53 hours. 7 minutes before midnight. The room falls silent except for the sound of tactical radios and distant sirens and wounded men breathing. The smell of blood and cordite hangs heavy. The emergency lighting continues its red pulse. Elena sits in her chair, covered in blood that isn't hers, trying to process, trying to understand, trying to figure out what happens next. Because this isn't over. Victor's dead, but someone else is alive. Someone who sabotaged her equipment. Someone who destroyed Cody Brennan's life. Someone who needs to answer for what they did. Then the door opens one more time, and Cody Brennan wheels himself in. He's in a specialized wheelchair, military grade, custom built, equipped with weapon mounts and tactical accessories that make it look more like a combat vehicle than mobility aid. His upper body is muscular, powerful. 4 years of physical therapy and adaptation have transformed him from wounded victim into something else, something adapted, something dangerous in different ways, something that proves disability doesn't mean helpless. He rolls through the door with practiced efficiency, navigates around bodies and debris like he's been doing this his whole life, stops when he sees the carnage, takes it in with professional assessment, the 8 hostiles, the blood, the evidence of brutal, efficient violence. Then he sees Elena. Their eyes meet across the room. 4 years of separation, 4 years of guilt and blame and unspoken apologies. 4 years of her avoiding him because she couldn't face what she thought she'd done. Chief Instructor Graves, Cody says, voice steady. Strong, no weakness, no victim mentality, just professional respect. Heard you were back in action. Thought I'd come see for myself. Elena can't speak, can only stare at the man she thought she'd destroyed, the student whose life she thought she'd ruined. The guilt she's carried for 4 years sitting right in front of her in a wheelchair that represents everything she tried to run from. Cody wheels closer, stops directly in front of her, looks at the carnage again. His eyes are analytical, professional, counting, assessing. 8 hostiles, how long did it take? 11 seconds for the first 4, maybe 2 minutes for the rest. He whistles low, impressed. Never lost your edge, Chief. These guys never knew what hit them. Cody, Elena whispers. Her voice breaks on his name. I'm so sorry. The accident. It wasn't an accident. They sabotaged the equipment. Victor told me before he died. One of my students betrayed us. I didn't know. I should have checked more carefully. Should have protected you better. Should have. Stop, Chief, I know. Found out about 6 months ago. Been investigating on my own. Had time, you know. When you're in a chair, people don't notice you, don't see you as a threat. Makes investigation easier. Tracked it back to Victor's organization. Was about to bring evidence to Oni when I heard about tonight's assault. Figured you might need backup. Elena stares. Processing. You knew for 6 months and you didn't tell me. Couldn't find you. You'd buried yourself too deep. Elena Graves, the supply officer, might as well have been a ghost. More invisible than Phantom ever was. I tried calling, tried emailing, tried showing up at your office. Your assistant said you weren't taking visitors, that you were too busy with inventory. I got the message loud and clear. You didn't want to see me. Didn't want to face what you thought you'd done. I couldn't, Elena says, voice small, broken. Couldn't look at you. Couldn't face the evidence of my failure. Couldn't stand to see what I'd done to you. You didn't do this to me. They did. Victor Volkov and whoever helped him. You were the target. I was just the ammunition they used against you. He reaches out, takes her hand. His grip is strong, certain, warm. Chief, you taught me to fight. You taught me to survive. You taught me that limitation doesn't mean helpless. That adaptation is just another form of strength. And over the last 4 years, I've learned that lesson deeper than most people ever will. This chair doesn't define me. What defines me is what I do with it, how I adapt, how I overcome, how I help others overcome. Colonel Stark watches from nearby, silent, letting this moment happen, letting student and teacher reconcile without interference. Cody continues. You want to know what I've been doing for 4 years while you were hiding and blaming yourself? I've been working with the VA. helping other wounded veterans adapt to life after injury, teaching them that losing mobility doesn't mean losing purpose or capability or worth. I've developed adaptive combat techniques, close quarters fighting from a seated position, weapon retention, defense against multiple attackers, ground fighting when you can't stand up. I've taught 63 wounded veterans how to protect themselves, how to be dangerous even from a chair, how to reclaim their identity as warriors even after the military tells them they're done. I built a program, Chief, just like you built one, and it works. My students are safer because of what I teach them, just like your students are safer because of what you taught them. Elena's eyes fill with tears. 4 years of guilt, 4 years of self-blame, 4 years of thinking she'd destroyed this kid's life. And here he is telling her he built something beautiful from the wreckage, something meaningful, something that helps people. I didn't know, she whispers. You didn't ask. You ran. You hid. You let guilt win when you should have fought back. His voice softens but doesn't lose its strength. Chief, I forgive you for everything you think you did wrong, for not checking equipment carefully enough even though you couldn't have caught sabotage that required chemical analysis to detect, for not preventing something you literally couldn't have prevented, for 4 years of avoiding me because you were too broken to face me. I forgive all of it, every bit. Now you need to forgive yourself. You need to stop carrying weight that was never yours to carry. Elena pulls him into a hug, awkward with the wheelchair between them, but fierce, desperate. 4 years of grief and guilt releasing like water through a broken dam. Cody hugs back just as fiercely. Both of them understanding what words can't fully convey. Forgiveness, acceptance, moving forward together instead of being paralyzed by the past. Captain Harlan watches. The entire quick reaction force watches. This moment of humanity in the middle of blood and chaos, this moment of healing in a room that smells like death. Then Stark speaks, breaking the moment gently, returning them to reality. Captain Harlan, we need to talk. Private, about what happens next, about Chief Instructor Graves, about the program she used to run, about why the Navy needs that program back. Harlan nods slowly, still processing, still trying to understand everything that happened tonight. Agreed, my office, 30 minutes. Let me get the situation stabilized here first. He turns to Elena. Lieutenant Graves, you saved my base tonight, saved my men, stopped an assault that would have killed dozens if it had succeeded. I don't fully understand everything that happened here, but I understand results, and results speak for themselves. He comes to attention, salutes sharp and formal. The kind of salute you give to someone who's earned it through blood and sacrifice and doing the impossible when nobody else could. Thank you for your service, then and now. Elena returns the salute automatically, military bearing reasserting itself despite the trauma and blood and shaking hands. Just doing my job, sir. No, Lieutenant Sutherland calls from across the room. The medics have him stabilized, shoulder bandaged, leg bandaged, IV in his arm, replacing lost blood. He's pale but conscious, alert. No, that wasn't just doing a job. That was something else entirely. That was, he struggles for words, struggles to articulate something he doesn't have language for. That was extraordinary. And I'm sorry, Chief, for dismissing you, for underestimating you, for being an arrogant ass who couldn't see what was right in front of him. You saved my life tonight, saved all our lives, took a bullet meant for you to protect me. That kind of courage, that kind of sacrifice. I'll never forget it. Elena nods slowly, acknowledging the apology, not quite accepting it yet because acceptance requires energy she doesn't have. That will come later, when the adrenaline fully fades, when the shock wears off, when she can think clearly about everything that's happened and what it means for her future. For now, she just sits, bleeds, breathes, and slowly begins to understand that retirement is over whether she wanted it or not. That Phantom is back, whether she likes it or not. That whatever happens next, she's not hiding anymore. Can't hide anymore. The cat's out of the bag. The secret's revealed. Everyone knows now. Time to figure out what comes next. Morning comes too fast. Elena spends the night in base medical, standard protocol after combat trauma. 17 lacerations requiring stitches. 2 cracked ribs taped up. extensive bruising that will hurt for weeks, mild dehydration, moderate shock that passes after a few hours of IV fluids and rest. The doctor, young guy named Patterson, fresh out of residency, probably 30 years old, tries to prescribe painkillers and sleeping pills. She refuses both, needs to stay sharp, needs to think clearly, because this isn't over. Viktor Volkov is dead, but his organization isn't. Ashkelon Group, 200 operators across 3 continents, according to Viktor's final words. And somewhere in that network, somewhere in her past, there's a former student who sabotaged her equipment and destroyed Cody Brennan's life. Someone who turned traitor for money. Someone who needs to answer for what they did. She needs to find him, needs answers, needs justice or closure or revenge or whatever you call it when you make someone face consequences for their actions. But first she needs to deal with Captain Harlan and whatever comes next professionally. He arrives at 0700 precisely, military punctuality, brings coffee from that expensive place off base, 2 large cups, both black because he's done his homework and knows she doesn't take cream or sugar. Sits down in the plastic visitor chair. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck. Like my entire understanding of my logistics department just exploded. He opens a folder, thick folder, lots of pages. I've been reading your service record, the real one, not the sanitized version they show base commanders. Colonel Stark provided additional context. Oni filled in the gaps. Elena sips the coffee. It's excellent. Too good for hospital visiting hours. And I'm an idiot for not seeing it sooner. 7 years running the most effective close quarters combat program in naval special warfare history. 73 graduates. Statistical analysis shows your students have 43% higher survival rates in close combat situations than operators trained through standard programs. 43%, Elena. That's not luck. That's not good training. That's excellence bordering on miraculous. Was excellence. Past tense. I walked away 4 years ago because you thought you'd failed a student. Except now we know you didn't fail anyone. You were sabotaged, targeted, used as a weapon against yourself. Harlan leans forward, intent. Elena, I'm reactivating the Advanced Close Quarters Combat Program. Full funding, expanded mandate, new facility, everything you need, and I want you to run it. No. The word comes out flat, final, non-negotiable. Harlan blinks, clearly not the answer he expected. No. I'm not qualified anymore. 4 years out, rusty. Last night was survival instinct, not professional competence. You need someone current. Someone who hasn't spent half a decade hiding behind Excel spreadsheets. Someone who was as current as you were last night, Harlan counters smoothly. Elena, you took down 8 hostiles in under 3 minutes, with improvised weapons, while protecting wounded teammates, while being shot at. That's not rusty. That's muscle memory, so deep it survives 4 years of dormancy. That's skill so fundamental it can't be erased. That's trauma response. Fight or flight. That's not teaching. Then relearn teaching. Take a month. Retrain. Get back into form. Work with Colonel Stark. Work with Cody Brennan. Build something better than what you had before. But do it, because the Navy needs this program. My base needs it. Those 4 QRF members who died Tuesday night, they died because they didn't know how to fight without rifles. Because nobody taught them what you taught 73 other men. How many more have to die before we fix that? Elena stares at her coffee, sees the 4 dead QRF members reflected in the dark liquid, sees all the ways violence ends lives when people aren't prepared, when training doesn't cover close quarters, when rifles fail and you're 6 inches from an enemy and you don't know what to do. I'll think about it. I need an answer by end of business today. Then you'll have one. Harlan stands, leaves a second folder on her bedside table, thicker than the first. That's everything we have on Ashkelon Group. Oni compiled it overnight. Names, locations, known associates, financial records. The whole network laid bare. Thought you might want to do some reading. Help you think about the future. Help you decide what comes next. He leaves. Elena opens the folder. 53 pages of intelligence reports, Satellite photos showing training facilities in Bulgaria, Serbia, and UAE. Financial records tracing money through shell corporations. Known operators with their photos, real names, aliases. The entire structure of Viktor Volkov's organization laid bare in bureaucratic detail. She starts reading, looking for one name, one face, one connection to the man who sabotaged her program. 3 hours later, she finds it. Not a name, not a photo, but a pattern. An absence that speaks louder than presence. A hole in the data that tells a story if you know what questions to ask. Marcus Webb, trained in her 2019 class. Good student according to her teaching notes. Solid, reliable, never outstanding, but never problematic. The kind of student who graduates without fanfare and goes on to have a steady career. Quiet kid from Pennsylvania. Ask good questions, learn fast, nothing special, nothing memorable. Exactly the kind of person who could disappear and nobody would notice. Disappeared from naval records in October 2021, 6 months after Cody's accident. No forwarding address, no contact information, no discharge papers, just gone. Like smoke, like a ghost. ONI has him flagged as person of interest in 3 separate investigations. Arms trafficking, unauthorized disclosure of classified information, association with foreign military contractors. But no concrete evidence, no confirmed sightings, no arrests. Just suspicion and patterns and the kind of circumstantial connections that mean something but don't prove anything. Ghost. Elena memorizes his face from the service photo. 31 years old when the photo was taken in 2019. Would be 32 now in 2025. Brown hair, brown eyes, 5'10", 170 pounds. No distinguishing marks, utterly forgettable. The kind of face you'd walk past in a crowd and not remember 5 minutes later. Perfect contractor material. She keeps reading, finds more absence. Marcus Webb's name doesn't appear in Ashkelon Group rosters, doesn't show up in financial records, doesn't exist in the carefully documented structure of Victor's organization. Which means he's deep cover, operating under alias, too valuable to expose in normal operations. Or it means he's not part of Ashkelon at all. Means Victor hired him for one specific job, sabotage the equipment, hurt the instructor, collect payment, disappear into whatever hole contractors disappear into when the job's done. Either way, finding him will be difficult, maybe impossible. But Elena Graves didn't spend 7 years teaching Navy SEALs to give up when things got difficult. She taught them to adapt, to persist, to find ways around obstacles. Time to practice what she preached. Colonel Stark visits that afternoon, brings lunch from the commissary, sits down, waits for her to finish reading, doesn't interrupt, just presence. Found something, he finally asks. Marcus Webb, 2019 student, disappeared 6 months after Cody's accident. Only thinks he's contractor to, no confirmed location, no concrete evidence, but the timing fits perfectly. The pattern fits, the absence fits. You want to go after him. I want to find him, make him answer questions, make him face what he did. That's ONI's job. Your job, if you take it, is training the next generation, teaching them what you taught the others, making sure no more kids die because they didn't know how to fight. Can't do both, Stark smiles knowingly. Probably could, but you shouldn't have to. Let the intelligence community handle Marcus Webb. You handle making sure his betrayal doesn't happen again. Make sure the next 73 students stay loyal. Make sure they understand what honor means, what integrity means, what it costs to betray those values. Elena sets down the folder, looks at her mentor, 68 years old, still standing straight, still projecting authority earned over decades, still the man who taught her everything she knows about violence and honor and the space where they intersect. Ray, what if I can't do it? What if I get another student hurt? What if the guilt comes back? What if I'm not good enough anymore? What if you stop asking, what if? Stark interrupts gently but firmly. Elena, fear is normal, doubt is healthy, but letting fear and doubt control your decisions, that's cowardice. And you're not a coward. You proved that Tuesday night when you took on 12 hostiles to protect your teammates. I proved I can survive. That's different from proving I can teach. Teaching is just survival with lesson plans. You know this, you've always known this. The only question is whether you are brave enough to try again. Brave enough to face the possibility of failure. Brave enough to risk another student getting hurt in pursuit of making all of them safer. Elena looks out the window, watches afternoon PT, young sailors running in formation, learning discipline, learning teamwork, learning the basics that might keep them alive someday. But basics don't save lives in close quarters. Advanced techniques save lives. Phantom's techniques, her legacy that she tried to bury. If I do this, Elena says slowly, carefully, I do it my way. No oversight. No bureaucratic interference. I teach what needs teaching, not what looks good in reports. And if command doesn't like my methods, they can find someone else. Done. I want Cody Brennan as my assistant instructor. He might be in a wheelchair, but he knows the techniques. And he's living proof that disability doesn't mean helpless. That adaptation is strength. That overcoming is possible. Done. And I want full access to all intelligence regarding Marcus Webb and Ashkelon Group. If I'm teaching operators to fight, I need to know what threats they're facing. Need to understand how my own techniques are being used against us. Need to close that vulnerability before it kills more people. Stark hesitates. This is the hard one. That's complicated. ONI doesn't typically share operational intelligence with training instructors. Compartmentalization. Need to know. Security protocols. Then make me more than an instructor. Make me a consultant, a liaison, a specialist. Whatever bureaucratic title lets me see the files. Because if one of my students is turned traitor, I need to understand why. Need to identify the vulnerability in my screening or my program or my teaching. Need to make sure it doesn't happen again. I'll see what I can do. Not good enough. Get it done or I walk. This is non-negotiable, Ray. I won't teach blind. Won't train students without understanding the threats. Won't build a program that has the same weaknesses as before. Stark's smile widens, genuine, proud. There she is. There's Phantom. Welcome back, kiddo. Elena gives Captain Harlan her answer at 1600 hours, in his office with Colonel Stark present as witness. Yes, I'll do it. I'll restart the program, on my terms, with my conditions, starting immediately. Harlan doesn't hide his relief. Thank you, Chief Instructor Graves. When can you start? Already started. Soon as I get out of medical tomorrow, I'm surveying facilities, planning curriculum, recruiting instructors. First class begins in 2 weeks. 24 students, SEAL candidates only, volunteers only, 12-week intensive program. 2 weeks, that's ambitious. 2 weeks gives me time to prepare properly, time to recruit the right people, time to make sure everything's perfect. I won't make the same mistakes twice, won't cut corners, won't compromise on safety or quality. About those conditions, Harlan says carefully, the intelligence access. That's going to be difficult to arrange. ONI is very protective of operational information, very rigid about compartmentalization. Then I'll make it easier. I have information they want. I spent 30 minutes in close conversation with Viktor Volkov before he died. He told me things about Ashkelon Group, about their operations, about their plans, about vulnerabilities in their organization. I'll trade that information for access to their files. Fair exchange, everyone benefits. Harlan and Stark exchange glances. Stark nods slightly. Permission. Trust. What did he tell you? Harlan asks. That's between me and ONI. Set up the meeting. I'll provide intelligence. They'll provide access. Everyone gets what they need. Simple transaction. The ONI meeting happens Friday morning. Secure conference facility on base. Elena meets with 2 special agents. The tall, balding one introduces himself as Special Agent Reeves. His partner is Agent Costa. Younger. Intense. Takes notes on everything. Elena spends 3 hours debriefing everything Viktor said, everything she observed about the hostile team's training and equipment and tactics and coordination. She holds nothing back except Viktor's final revelation about Marcus Webb being the inside man. That she keeps private, personal. That's her hunt, her justice, her closure. In exchange, Oni grants her consultant status, access to classified files regarding Ashkelon Group and any investigations involving her former students, monthly briefings on threat assessments, a secure terminal in her office with encrypted access to relevant databases. It's more than she expected, less than she wanted, but enough to work with, enough to start building the foundation of something better. The facility dedication happens Friday afternoon. They've cleaned up the operations center, but some scars remain. Bullet holes patched but visible, burn marks on walls, reminders that violence visited this place and left its mark. The new training center is different, purpose-built from the ground up, 50,000 square feet of purpose-designed space, state-of-the-art equipment, everything Elena requested and more because Harlan's serious about making this work. Captain Harlan presides over the ceremony. 200 personnel attend. I hereby dedicate this facility the Stark Graves Advanced Combat Training Center. Named for Colonel Raymond Stark, whose 30 years of experience created the foundational techniques, and Chief Instructor Elena Graves, whose 7 years of teaching refined those techniques into the most effective close-quarters combat program in naval special warfare history. Applause, cameras. Elena feels exposed, but Stark whispers, "Get used to it. You're not invisible anymore. That's the point. That's the goal. Visibility means legitimacy, means resources, means survival." After the ceremony, Elena explores her new facility properly. The mat room is huge, 60 feet by 70, padded floors bolted directly to reinforced concrete, no adhesive to fail, just mechanical anchors that would require deliberate sabotage with power tools to compromise. Adjacent rooms for specialized training, knife work, weapons retention, multiple opponent scenarios, ground fighting, everything compartmentalized but accessible. Office space upstairs with a window overlooking the main mat room so she can supervise from above when needed. And on the wall, a plaque in Colonel Stark's handwriting, "Those who understand teach." Elena traces the letters. Something settles in her chest. Purpose, direction, home. She's home again, back where she belongs, even if she tried to run from it for 4 years. "You ready for this?" Cody wheels up behind her. He's been appointed assistant instructor, official position, official pay grade, first adaptive combat specialist in naval special warfare history. No, terrified actually. Good. Fear keeps you sharp, keeps you careful, keeps you from getting cocky. He wheels onto the mat. "Show me something, Chief. Been 4 years. Want to see if you still remember how to teach." For the next hour they work, Elena teaching, Cody adapting and learning. They develop techniques specifically for wheelchair combat. How to use the chair as weapon and shield simultaneously. How to strike from seated position with maximum efficiency. "Monday," Cody says finally, "we're going to save lives." "Monday," Elena agrees, "we're going to save lives." Monday morning, 0500. 24 students arrive, 18 men, 6 women, all SEAL candidates, all volunteers. Lieutenant Sutherland is there on crutches but present and ready. Elena walks onto the mat. "My name is Elena Graves. For the next 12 weeks, I'm going to teach you how to kill people. Not with rifles, with your hands, with improvised weapons, with anything available when the bullets stop flying." She pulls up photos, 4 faces, the QRF members killed Tuesday night. These men died 5 days ago. They were brave, well-trained. They died because they didn't know how to fight without rifles. That's why you're here. So you come home. The class works, 4 hours. By 0900, all 24 students are exhausted but understanding. 3 weeks later, Cody finds Elena. "Chief, about Marcus Webb. I think I found him." He shows her a photo from Belgrade. Gait analysis matches. It's him. Elena studies the photo. Her former student, the man who destroyed Cody's life. "We tell Oni, this goes through proper channels, but I want to be there when they bring him in." The meeting with Oni leads to Elena boarding a transport Thursday. 14-hour flight to Belgrade. Friday morning 0600, they execute the apprehension. No resistance. Marcus Webb secured. They take him to interrogation. Marcus looks older. "Chief Instructor Graves, been a long time." 6 years. "Tell me, Marcus, was it worth it? Whatever Victor paid you, was it worth Cody Brennan's paralysis?" "That wasn't personal, just business. Volkov paid well, 2 million. All I had to do was create an accident. You destroyed a kid's life. For money. I didn't know who would get hurt. Odds were it would be minor, not paralysis. That was bad luck. You created the conditions. That's on you. Marcus finally breaks. I regret Cody, but I can't go back. Forward into prison, 25 years minimum. You're done. Elena stands. One more thing. Cody forgave you. He's doing better than you'll ever do. He built a program. He helps people. He's a better man than you could ever be. Remember that in prison. She leaves. Gets justice. Gets confession. But it doesn't feel like victory. Just feels like ending. Back at Coronado, Cody asks, "Do you feel better?" "No, I thought I would, but it just feels empty." Justice isn't about fixing things. It's about accounting. That has to be enough. Is it enough for you? Cody smiles. I stopped caring about Marcus Webb 6 months ago. I'm doing good work now. That's my answer. The weeks pass. Training continues. March brings graduation. All 24 students complete the program. Sutherland graduates top of class. "Chief," he says, "thank you. I'll carry these lessons. I'll teach my team. That's my promise." Captain Harlan approaches. "Command wants to expand. Double capacity. Make this mandatory for all SEAL candidates. I'll need 6 months to recruit instructors." You have it. Build something that lasts. That night, Elena writes in her journal, 24 graduates. They're ready. They're dangerous. They're capable. More important, they're honorable. That's what I taught them, not just how to kill, why honor matters more than survival. 6 months later, September 2026, the facility has expanded, 4 training rooms, 8 instructors, 48 students. Sutherland returned as instructor. Cody runs adaptive combat program. Stark consults. Captain Harlan finds Elena. Command wants to make this standard for all naval special warfare. 2,000 students per year. Are you ready? Yes, we're ready. Your graduates have participated in 87 combat operations. 0 casualties from close quarters combat. 0. That's all that matters. And what I need is promise that this survives me, that when I'm gone the program continues. It's now institutional, it's permanent, it will outlive all of us. Then I'm ready. Let's change the world. That evening, Elena sits alone, opens her journal. Final entry. September 2026. The program has grown beyond anything I imagined. 48 students this cycle. 2,000 next year. Becoming permanent. Becoming legacy. I started in 2011. 15 years ago, Stark taught me. I taught 73. 4 went bad. 69 stayed loyal. Now hundreds. Soon thousands. Cody forgave me. Marcus confessed. Victor died. Justice was served. But that's not what matters. What matters is students learning. Operators surviving. Warriors coming home. That's legacy. The lives saved. The warriors who return to families because someone taught them how to survive. I am Elena Graves. I am Phantom. And for 15 years, I've been teaching people to be dangerous. Not for violence's sake, for survival's sake, for honor's sake, for the sake of coming home. That's enough. That's everything. That's legacy. She closes the journal, turns off the lights, walks out. Tomorrow she'll return. Tomorrow she'll teach. Tomorrow she'll build more legacy. But tonight she's done. Tonight she's at peace. Phantom has come home, and home is teaching warriors to survive.